The galaxy had stopped taking Earth seriously a long time ago, when the first ships from the coalition of species reached the Sol system. They didn't see warriors, strategists, or conquerors. They saw a primitive, fractured world clinging to old weapons, tired ideologies, and scraps of technology that were considered obsolete. 2 centuries ago, humanity was laughed at, pied, and written off as a minor species destined for servitude under the coalition's iron grip. That was why the aliens expected a shuttle, a simple, small, outdated human craft to arrive at their grand assembly. They expected something flimsy, something desperate, something that would remind them why humanity was beneath notice. What they did not expect was the shadow that blotted out the stars, the Invictus. She was born in secrecy in the dark shipyards hidden beneath the frozen wastes of Antarctica. Every nation on Earth had poured its final drops of blood and steel into her creation. She was more than a warship. She was vengeance forged into metal, humanity's refusal to kneel, a machine built not for peace but for absolute annihilation. While the aliens boasted of their fleets, their council, their civilized superiority, Earth was quiet. And in that silence, the Invictus was made ready. Commander Darius Kane stood on the bridge, his jaw hard as stone, his eyes locked on the looming alien station. Ahead, he had lived through the humiliation, through the endless lectures of alien diplomats telling Earth what it could and could not do. He remembered the riots when food ran thin, because alien trade tariffs strangled entire continents. He remembered the faces of soldiers executed in public when they resisted coalition patrols. Most of all, he remembered his brother, shot in the back by an alien overseer for daring to raise the human flag in occupied territory. Now it was time to repay the debt. The comms officer turned, his voice low. Commander, the coalition is hailing us. They seem confused. Let them be confused, Kane said coldly. Open the channel. The massive view screen flickered, revealing a room filled with alien delegates, scaled, furred, feathered, and skinned in every grotesque color of the stars. They were draped in silks and metals, arrogance practically oozing from them. At the center, the High Arbiter of the coalition leaned forward, his mandibles twitching in irritation. This vessel, the alien hissed, is not recognized. You were instructed to send a shuttle. Explain yourselves. Kane stepped into view, shoulders squared, every inch the soldier he had trained to be. This is our shuttle, he said, voice steady. We just decided to build it bigger. A ripple of laughter spread through the council chamber, arrogant, dismissive, mocking laughter. But the High Arbiter didn't laugh. His black eyes studied the shadow of the Invictus behind Kane, and though he tried to hide it, Kane saw the flicker of unease. Human, the Arbiter said slowly, you stand here under the pretense of peace. Yet you arrive in whatever this monstrosity is. Do you seek to threaten us? Kane let the silence drag out. His crew shifted uncomfortably, their hands brushing against their stations, waiting for his word. Finally, he answered, his voice like iron, striking steel. No, we don't seek to threaten you. He leaned closer, letting the weight of every word carry across the void. We seek to remind you. The laughter died. In that moment, the station's sensors would be lighting up, screaming warnings about the Invictus weapons arrays, its energy output, its systems that shouldn't exist for a species like humanity, weapons designed not for intimidation, but for obliteration. Entire fleets could be swallowed in its shadow. The Arbiter's mandibles clicked. Nervously. You dare, Kane cut him off, his voice rising sharp as a blade. You enslaved us, you humiliated us, you thought Earth was broken, and for years we let you believe it. His hands tightened behind his back, knuckles white, but we are done being quiet. Around the bridge the crew straightened, their fear hardening into something sharper, rage, pride, defiance. On the alien station, silence reigned. The council had expected a beggar's shuttle, a plea for mercy. Instead they faced the largest warship humanity had ever built, and Kane knew this was only the beginning. The silence in the coalition chamber was thick enough to strangle hundreds of alien voices, usually quick to boast or sneer, now whispered. Nervously, the Invictus hovered outside their grand station like a predator, circling prey, its vast hull swallowing the stars, its lines sharp, angular, and utterly alien in design, yet undeniably human. Kane watched them squirm through the viewscreen. For years humanity had been spoken down to like children. Now, for the first time, they didn't have words. That silence was sweeter than any victory. The High Arbiter finally broke it. His mandibles clacked against one another, sharp and deliberate. Human, he hissed, this posturing will not save you. You stand before the united strength of the galaxy. One warship does not change your station. Kane's jaw tightened. He wasn't a man who enjoyed speeches. He preferred action, but he also knew every word right now mattered. Every syllable would echo across the galaxy when this moment was retold. Then test us, Kane said simply. The Arbiter's black eyes narrowed. His voice rose, booming through the chamber. So be it, guards, prepare. Before he could finish, Kane gave the signal. His helmsman, Lieutenant Alvarez, slid his hand across the control panel with a calmness that belied the storm building around them. A single shot erupted from the Invictus. It wasn't a full broadside. It wasn't even a fraction of the ship's arsenal. Just one pulse from the spinal cannon. Focused and controlled, the shot carved through space like a blade of white fire. In the blink of an eye, the coalition's outer defense grid, an array of satellites and cruisers meant to symbolize their authority, was gone. Vaporized. No wreckage, no debris, just silence and a graveyard of dust. Gasps and shrieks filled the alien chamber. The delegates scrambled, some retreating from the table, others pointing claws and tendrils at Kane's image as if he were a demon. Kane didn't flinch. That was restraint, he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. The next shot won't be on the bridge of the Invictus. The crew exchanged glances. They had just committed an act of war. Some looked proud, others shaken. Kane saw both reactions and felt the weight of it pressing on his chest. His brother's face haunted him, the moment of his execution replaying in his memory. This wasn't just about humanity, it was about vengeance. It always had been. The Arbiter slammed his clawed hand on the table. You dare destroy coalition property? Kane leaned closer, his shadowed face filling the alien screen. You enslaved my people. You murdered them in the streets. You called us animals, parasites, a burden. Now you will learn what kind of burden we are. The Arbiter's voice dropped to a venomous growl. You've signed your species' death. Warrant maybe, Kane said coldly, but if we die you'll bleed first. The channel cut. For a long moment the bridge was silent except for the low hum of the Invictus. Every officer stared at Kane, waiting for his next command. Outside the alien station floated an uneasy stillness, its fleets hesitating, torn between fear and outrage. Alvarez broke the silence. Commander, we just declared war on the entire galaxy. Kane's eyes never left the window. His voice was calm, almost detached. No, they declared war the day they put chains on us. Today we answered. The first fleet arrived within hours. Dozens of coalition warships surged out of hyperspace surrounding the Invictus. Sleek, curved designs glimmered in the void, each ship a masterpiece of alien engineering. They dwarfed human frigates, their firepower enough to level continents. For centuries humanity had lived under their shadow, helpless, but the Invictus was no frigate. Enemy formation detected, the tactical officer reported. His hands hovered over the weapons console, trembling with anticipation. 48 ships, Commander. Their capital vessel is leading the charge. On the screen, Kane watched as the massive alien dreadnought glided forward. Its hull shimmered with shields, its weapons glowing as they prepared to fire. Alvarez's voice was low. They're giving us a chance to surrender. Kane almost laughed. Surrender? Humanity had already been surrendering. For decades, forced to bow, to obey, to watch their children grow up under alien boots. Enough. Target the capital ship, Kane ordered. The tactical officer hesitated. Commander, that ship alone carries a crew of targeted, Kane snapped. His voice left no room for doubt. The officer obeyed. The Invictus roared to life, its cannons lit up, its hull glowing with energy as if the beast itself was breathing. In one devastating strike, the spinal cannon fired again. The blast tore through the alien dreadnoughts' shields as if they were paper, ripping the ship in half. A second volley from the Invictus broadside reduced what was left to molten shards. The crew erupted into stunned silence. Kane stared at the wreckage. He felt no triumph, only a hollow ache. Another reminder that war never gave back what it stole, but the message was clear. Humanity was not prey anymore. The alien fleet panicked. Some ships opened fire, beams and plasma surging against the Invictus. Shields flared. The bridge shuddered, but the warship held. Her armor was layered with experimental alloys no alien had ever seen, stolen from the scraps of every crashed ship humanity had scavenged. What had once been a weakness, the habit of scavenging, was now their deadliest strength. Return fire, Kane said. Invictus unleashed hell. Batteries of rail guns and plasma cannons tore into the enemy formation. Missiles streaked through space, each warhead striking with surgical precision. Coalition cruisers vanished in bursts of fire, their wreckage tumbling lifelessly. In less than 10 minutes, half the fleet was gone. The rest fled. Alvarez's voice cracked with disbelief. Commander, we just destroyed a coalition fleet. Kane finally allowed himself a slow breath. Correction, Lieutenant, we just announced our arrival. Hours later, the Invictus floated among the debris. The battlefield was silent, littered with drifting husks and the shattered pride of the coalition. But Kane knew this was only the beginning. He gathered his senior officers in the war room. The atmosphere was heavy. Some looked exhilarated, others grim. Kane could see the questions burning in their eyes. Alvarez spoke first. Sir, the coalition won't let this go. That was just one fleet. They'll send more. Hundreds, maybe thousands. We can't fight them all. Kane studied the star map glowing on the table. We don't have to. We just need to show them that every battle will cost them, that humanity won't kneel again. They built their empire on fear. Now we'll turn that fear back on them. One of the younger officers, Enon, roared and shifted nervously. But sir, what about Earth? If they retaliate, billions will die. Kane's eyes hardened. Billions are already dying under their rule. Every day someone is starved, beaten, or executed for being human. We either fight now or we watch the species fade away, one chain at a time. The room fell silent. Kane leaned over the table, his voice low but filled with steel. We're not here to save everyone. We're here to make the galaxy bleed until it fears our name. For a long moment no one spoke. Then Alvarez nodded slowly. One by one the others followed. They knew the cost, but they also knew the alternative was worse. Meanwhile, far away on the coalition's capital world, panic had erupted. News of the Invictus spread faster than light. Images of the destroyed fleet circulated through every system. The coalition's people, who had always seen humanity as a weak, broken race, now saw something else, something terrifying. The High Arbiter stood before his council, mandibles twitching in fury. This human abomination must be destroyed. If word spreads, other enslaved worlds will rise. Already whispers of rebellion stir. One delegate, a feathered creature with cold eyes, hissed, "You underestimated them. You let them build this weapon." The Arbiter struck the table. Enough. Prepare the Grand Armada. If it takes 1,000 ships, we will burn that warship to ash. But deep inside, the Arbiter felt something he hadn't in centuries: fear. On the Invictus, Kane stood alone in his quarters. The room was bare save for a small photograph pinned above his desk. His brother smiling on the day of his enlistment, before the execution, before everything. Kane poured himself a drink, staring at the glass as the hum of the warship vibrated through the floor. He had destroyed a fleet today. He had drawn the blood of the galaxy's masters, but none of it brought his brother back. None of it erased the screams, the begging, the helplessness. This war wasn't just strategy. It wasn't politics, it was personal, and Kane knew one truth above all others: once you showed the galaxy you could fight, you couldn't stop. You had to keep fighting harder and harder until either you broke or they did. He raised his glass in silence. To you, brother, this is only the beginning. Outside his window, the stars stretched endlessly. Somewhere out there, the coalition was rallying, preparing to drown humanity in fire. But Kane wasn't afraid. They had expected a shuttle. Instead, they had met Earth's most powerful warship, and the galaxy would never forget it. The coalition didn't waste time. The humiliation of losing a fleet to a single human warship was too great. Within days, systems that had once ignored Earth were suddenly flooded with propaganda. Alien broadcasters filled the networks with one message: humanity had committed an atrocity, destroyed a lawful fleet, murdered thousands of innocent crew members. The Invictus was branded terrorist weapon, its commander a war criminal. And across the galaxy, the Grand Armada was summoned. thousands of ships, the greatest fleet ever assembled under the Coalition's banner. For centuries, the Armada had been little more than a myth, a relic of a time when the Coalition had faced true enemies, but now it returned, called from every corner of the stars to bring down one ship and crush the species that dared to defy them. Kane watched the intercepted broadcasts from the war room of the Invictus. The alien news feeds showed endless streams of battleships warping into rendezvous points, their formation spreading like a storm across the galaxy. His officers stood around the table, pale and silent. Alvarez broke it first. "We can't fight that, Commander. One ship against that. It's suicide." Kane's eyes stayed fixed on the star map. His voice was low, controlled. "We were never going to survive this war. That's not the point." Roden swallowed hard. "Then what is the point?" Kane turned to face them. His eyes were bloodshot from sleepless nights, but the fire in them hadn't dimmed. "To make them bleed, to make them fear humanity so much they'll never put chains on us again, even if Earth burns. They'll remember this warship. They'll remember the price of crossing us." Room fell into silence. No one dared argue because deep down they knew he was right. But even as Kane spoke those words, a deeper rot was spreading inside his ship. It started with whispers. The Invictus was vast, with a crew drawn from every corner of Earth, soldiers, engineers, scientists, pilots, all bound together by desperation and fury. But not everyone shared Kane's vision. Some feared the war they were entering, some believed the propaganda, or at least wondered if the Coalition's grip wasn't preferable to extinction, and some had been bought long before the ship left its hidden dock. Lieutenant Ramirez, head of security, approached Kane late into the night. He carried a data pad, his expression grim. "Commander," Ramirez said, lowering his voice, "we've intercepted encrypted transmissions from within the ship. Someone's been signaling Coalition patrols." Kane's fists clenched. "Who?" "We're still tracking it. The signals are masked through maintenance systems. Whoever it is knows what they're doing." Kane's mind burned. Spies, of course. The Coalition had never underestimated humanity completely. They knew Earth was divided, weak, filled with traitors who'd sell their own kind for a seat at the alien table. "Find them," Kane said. His voice was ice. "And when you do, bring them to me alive." Ramirez nodded, but Kane saw the unease in his eyes. Even the security chief was shaken. Betrayal was a sickness, and once it spread, it was hard to cut out. Meanwhile, the Grand Armada gathered. Reports streamed in. Over 1,000 ships massing near the Helios Rift. Entire battle groups of dreadnoughts, carriers bristling with fighters, support vessels, and experimental weapons designed specifically for the Invictus. The Coalition was not taking chances. "They're moving faster than we expected," Alvarez reported during the next briefing. "Our scouts confirmed the Armada will be ready in less than 2 weeks if they lock onto our location. Earth won't stand a chance." Kane studied the star map, tracing potential routes. The Invictus couldn't outfight that many ships, but it could outthink them. "We strike before they're ready," Kane said. The room went still. "Sir?" Roden asked carefully. Kane zoomed in on the rift. "They're assembling here, exposed, scattered, while they organize. If we hit them now, before they are fully formed, we can an NBSP them. We don't need to destroy The Armada just cut its heart out. Without leadership, the rest will splinter. It was bold, reckless, a single warship, diving into the heart of the largest fleet in history, but reckless plans were all humanity had left. Alvarez exhaled slowly. Then we've got less than 2 weeks to prepare. Preparation consumed the Invictus. Engineers worked around the clock, reinforcing shields, calibrating weapons and programming firing sequences that could handle the stress of prolonged engagement. Pilots drilled in the launch bays, running endless simulations of fighter swarms. Medics stocked the infirmaries, grimly aware most of their supplies wouldn't last beyond the first strike. Kane walked the decks, his presence a steadying force. Soldiers saluted, engineers nodded. Officers straightened. He spoke little, but his silence carried more weight than speeches. He was the face of defiance, the embodiment of every man who had ever knelt under alien boots and dreamed of standing tall again. But at night, in the solitude of his quarters, he felt the cracks, the exhaustion, the endless weight of responsibility, the gnawing voice whispering that maybe Alvarez was right. Maybe this was suicide. Maybe he was leading humanity to its final grave. And then he'd look at the photo, his brother smiling, alive in a world that no longer existed. That was enough to silence the doubt. The traitor revealed themselves 4 days before departure. Ramirez burst into Kane's quarters, dragging a bloodied ensign by the collar. The young man's face was pale, his eyes darting with fear. Ramirez threw him to the floor. Commander, we caught him rerouting transmissions. He was sending our coordinates straight to the coalition. Kane's stomach churned. He stepped forward, his shadow falling over the trembling Enon. Why? Kane asked softly. The ensign swallowed hard. They offered me safety, passage off Earth, a chance to live when the rest of you burn. The words cut deeper than any blade. Kane saw his brother's execution in the boy's cowardice, humanity's weakness laid bare, survival at any cost, even betrayal. He crouched down, locking eyes with the traitor. And you think they would have spared you? You think the same monsters who chained your family would have let you live as anything more than a dog? The ensign's lips trembled. He had no answer. Kane stood, his decision made. Ramirez, put him in the brig. He'll stand trial when this war is done. Ramirez hesitated. Sir, some say an example should be made. Kane's voice was hard. No, we don't become them, not yet. But as Ramirez dragged the boy away, Kane felt the eyes of his crew on him. Some approved, others wanted blood, and Kane knew the cracks were widening. The day of departure came. The Invictus emerged from its hidden dock, engines flaring bright against the void. Every man and woman aboard knew the truth. They might never see Earth again, but none of them turned back. The Helios rift loomed ahead, a swirling scar of red and blue energy. Beyond it waited the Grand Armada, the largest fleet in history, gathering to erase humanity from existence. On the bridge, Kane stood tall. His voice rang out, calm but commanding. Today we do not fight for survival. We fight for memory, for every life taken by the coalition, for every family broken, for every brother and sister who died with chains around their necks. We fight so that when the galaxy speaks of humanity, it speaks with fear. The crew erupted in a roar. The Invictus surged forward. The rift was chaos. Thousands of alien ships floated in. Formation half-complete fuel lines. Still attached, supply vessels swarming. Dreadnoughts loomed like mountains. Carriers disked endless fighter craft. And at the center, the flagship, the Celestial Dominion, a ship so vast it could eclipse cities. Kane's eyes narrowed. That was the heart. Destroy it and the Armada would stumble. Bring us in, he ordered. The Invictus plunged into the maelstrom. Alarms screamed as enemy ships locked on. Hundreds of targeting systems lighting up the warship's hull. Plasma beams lanced out, missiles streaked. The void filled with fire. The Invictus roared back, her cannons thundered, tearing through enemy cruisers like paper. Railgun slugs punched holes through carriers. Missiles ignited fuel lines, turning half-assembled ships into fireballs. Fighters swarmed like locusts, but point defense turrets shredded them in sprays of metal and flame. Shields holding at 70%, the tactical officer shouted, "Keep firing, Kane." Barked, the spinal cannon lit up again. A blinding lance of energy cutting through space. It struck a dreadnought, splitting the massive ship in two. The explosion rippled through nearby vessels, a chain of detonations lighting up the rift like a newborn star. But for every ship they destroyed, 10 more closed in. The Invictus shook violently. Alarms blaring, sparks showered the bridge as consoles overloaded. The crew clung to their stations, sweat dripping, hands flying across controls, shields down to 40, Alvarez shouted. Kane's jaw clenched, his eyes locked on the Celestial Dominion. The flagship loomed ahead, its hull bristling with weapons, its shields glowing like a miniature sun. Target the flagship, Kane roared. The crew obeyed. The Invictus unleashed everything, cannons, missiles, rail guns, plasma, all converging on the massive ship. The Dominion's shields flared, holding under the onslaught, but cracks began to form. The Coalition fleet panicked, orders scrambled across comms, ships rushing to protect their flagship, but the Invictus pressed forward, tearing through defenders. Unstoppable in its fury, the spinal cannon charged again, energy building like a star ready to explode. Kane's voice cut through the chaos. Fire! The blast struck the Celestial Dominion. Its shield shattered, its hull ruptured. For a moment, the galaxy's most powerful ship hung silent, broken. Then it detonated. A blinding explosion that consumed everything around it. The rift became a graveyard. The Grand Armada, the pride of the Coalition, was broken in its cradle. The Invictus, scarred and burning, floated in the wreckage. The bridge was filled with smoke, consoles sparking, officers bleeding, but they were alive. And Kane, standing at the heart of it all, knew they had done the impossible. They had shattered the myth of Coalition invincibility. But deep inside, as the cheers of his crew filled the bridge, Kane felt the weight of what came next. This wasn't victory, this was provocation. The galaxy would never forgive humanity for this. The war had only just begun. The explosion of the Celestial Dominion echoed across the galaxy like a thunderclap. The Coalition's flagship, their pride, their symbol of power, was gone. Entire civilizations watched the footage in disbelief as the impossible became reality. A human warship had stood against the might of the Grand Armada and shattered its heart. On worlds enslaved by the Coalition, whispers turned into shouts. Miners in chains looked up from their tunnels with new fire in their eyes. farmers under alien overseers began to dream of. Rebellion, the myth of alien invincibility cultivated for centuries. Cracked like glass, but on the Invictus. Victory came with a price. The bridge was a haze of smoke and flickering. Light consoles sparked the smell of burnt circuits filling the air. Crew members staggered from their stations, some limping, some bloodied. The tactical officer slumped over his console, unmoving, until medics dragged him away. Damage report, Kane barked. Alvarez, coughing through the smoke, glanced at the readout. Hull integrity at 60%, portside armor breached on 3 decks, shields offline, engines running hot. If we push them, they'll burn out. Kane's jaw tightened. Weapons 70% operational, Alvarez said. He hesitated before adding, but ammunition reserves are running low. We can't keep firing like we did. Kane studied the wreckage outside the viewport. Alien ships still floated in the rift, crippled but alive, signaling distress. The Armada wasn't gone, it was scattered, and the coalition wasn't finished, not yet. He turned to his crew, their faces pale and exhausted. We dealt them a wound they'll never forget, but don't mistake this for victory. This was the first step. The war isn't over. A murmur of acknowledgement rippled through the bridge. They wanted to believe him. They needed to believe him, but in their eyes, Kane saw the doubt. They had seen the ship bleed. They had seen how close they had come to dying. And they knew the coalition wouldn't stop until the Invictus was ash. The retaliation came faster than Kane expected. 3 days after the battle, as the Invictus limped through empty space to find a safe repair point, the alarm screamed. Multiple warp signatures shouted, "Ramirez, they're dropping out of hyperspace." 30 ships, nope, 40. On the view screen, alien vessels materialized. But these were not the sleek warships of the Armada. These ships were different, angular, jagged, bristling with weapons that pulsed with sickly green light. Their hulls glowed faintly as if alive. Alvarez swore under his breath, "What the hell are those?" Kane narrowed his eyes. He had never seen designs like these. Patch me into the sensor feed. The tactical readout flickered, energy readings spiked higher than anything recorded before. The weapons on these ships weren't plasma or rail guns, they were something worse. They've deployed experimental vessels. Kane muttered, weapons they never dared use before. They're desperate. The alien fleet wasted no time. Beams of green fire lanced toward the Invictus. The first struck their shields, bypassing them entirely. The bridge shook violently as systems dimmed. Report, Kane barked. Direct hull penetration, Alvarez shouted. Those beams phased straight through shields. Deck 12 is gone. Gone, not damaged. Gone, dozens of lives snuffed out in an instant. Their section of the ship vaporized. The crew froze, horror in their eyes. Kane's blood boiled. Coalition had crossed another line. Return fire, he roared. The Invictus unleashed its fury. Rail guns tore into the nearest alien ship, ripping its glowing hull apart. Missiles strewn against enemy vessels in blossoms of fire, but the alien fleet pressed closer, their beams slicing through the warship like knives. Deck 9 breached, Ramirez shouted, hull fractures spreading. Emergency bulkheads holding for now. The ship shuddered again, alarms blaring. Kane gripped the command chair, refusing to yield. They want us to break, he growled. We won't give them the satisfaction. Hours of battle dragged on. The Invictus danced through enemy fire, her weapons blazing, her engines screaming as she tore through the alien formation. One by one, the strange ships fell, their glowing hulls cracking under human firepower, but for every enemy destroyed, the Invictus bled. By the time the last alien ship detonated, the warship was crippled. Fires burned across multiple decks. Half the crew was dead or injured. Power flickered, engines sputtered, but they were alive. Silence settled over the bridge. The crew slumped in their seats, faces hollow with exhaustion. The tactical displays showed nothing but wreckage around them. Alvarez broke the silence. That wasn't just an attack. That was a message. They wanted us to know. They'll throw everything at us. Old weapons, new weapons, doesn't matter. They'll burn every card they have just to kill us. Kane stared at the burning wreckage. Good, let them burn. Every weapon they use against us is a weapon they can't use elsewhere. We'll bleed them dry. But deep down, Kane felt the weight of the truth. The Invictus couldn't survive another battle like that, not without repairs, not without reinforcements. And humanity had no reinforcements. Repair crews swarmed the damaged decks, patching holes, sealing breaches, dragging bodies from the wreckage. Ship groaned like a wounded beast, but she endured. Kane walked the ruined corridors, his boots crunching over shattered metal and glass. Crew members straightened when they saw him, hiding their fear, their grief. They needed him to be unbreakable. He played the part, but when he reached the brig, the mask cracked. The traitor Enon sat in his cell, pale and shaking, staring at the chaos through the bars. He looked up as Kane approached, eyes wide with terror. You think you can win this? The boy spat. You saw what they sent. You can't fight the whole galaxy. You'll get us all killed. Kane's hand slammed against the bars, the sound echoing down the hall. The Enon flinched but didn't back down. You don't understand, the boy whispered. The Coalition isn't afraid of you. They're angry. They'll burn Earth just to make an example. You're condemning everyone. Kane's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, to shout, but the words stuck in his throat because part of him knew the boy was right, but surrender was no longer an option. Not after everything. Kane leaned closer, his voice low and deadly. Better we burn free than live as slaves. The boy's eyes filled with tears, but he said nothing more. Kane turned and walked away, his chest heavy. That night the crew gathered in the mess. All faces were hollow, uniforms torn and blood-stained. The silence was unbearable, the weight of death hanging over them. Kane stepped to the front, his voice carrying through the room. I won't lie to you, we've taken losses. We've bled, we've buried friends, and the Coalition will come again, stronger, with weapons we've never seen. But understand this, they bleed too. Every ship we destroy shakes their empire. Every victory we take cracks their lies. We are not just fighting for survival. We are fighting to prove that humanity will never bow again. He paused, letting the words sink in. I can't promise we'll see Earth again, but I promise this: if we fall, the galaxy will never forget who we were. For a moment silence reigned, then slowly a cheer rose, ragged at first, then stronger, until the meshal thundered. With voices, Kane stood among them, letting their fire fuel his own. But the Coalition was already preparing their Next strike, in the shadowed halls of their council, the High Arbiter seethed. The destruction of the celestial dominion was unforgivable. The failure of the experimental fleet was humiliating. The humans were not just defiant, they were dangerous. And so the Arbiter gave a single, chilling order. Deploy the Purge Protocol. It was a weapon never meant to be used. A weapon not against armies but against worlds. If humanity would not kneel, then humanity would burn. On the Invictus, Kane stood on the bridge as fresh reports streamed in. Colonies burned, outposts erased, entire cities on frin, worlds reduced to ash by an unknown weapon. Alvarez's voice trembled. Commander, they're not coming for us anymore, they're going for Earth. Kane's blood ran cold. The Arbiter wasn't just retaliating against the Invictus, he was punishing humanity itself. For the first time, Kane felt fear, not for himself, but for the billions still at home, waiting defenseless. He clenched his fists. Plot a course for Earth, maximum speed. The Invictus groaned, battered and broken, but her engines roared to life. The war had become something far worse than Kane imagined. It was no longer about freedom. It was about survival. The stars blurred past in streaks of light as the Invictus tore through hyperspace. The battered engines screamed under the strain, patched with makeshift repairs, their core running hotter than safety allowed. Every groan of the hull reminded Kane how close his ship was to breaking, but none of that mattered now. Earth was under attack. Kane stood on the bridge, his hands gripping the edge of the command table. His knuckles were white, his eyes bloodshot. He had been awake for nearly 2 days straight, refusing rest. Every intercepted broadcast played in his head. The burning colonies, the cities reduced to ash, the screams of civilians as the Purge Protocol swept across human worlds. The Coalition wasn't just trying to destroy the Invictus, they were trying to erase humanity itself. Alvarez leaned over the console, his voice strained. We've got new reports, Commander. Out. Colonies are gone, Mars settlements obliterated, lunar bases under siege. Earth is next. The words were knives. Kane had grown up on Earth, in a crumbling city beneath alien tariffs and endless humiliation. He remembered the food riots, the soldiers gunned down in the streets, his brother executed by alien hands, and now the aliens meant to wipe the planet clean. Time to arrival, Kane asked. 18 hours at current speed, Alvarez replied. But, Commander, even if we get there, we'll get there. Kane cut him off. And we'll fight, that's all that matters. Alvarez looked as if he wanted to argue, but one glance at Kane silenced him. Down in the crew decks, whispers spread like wildfire. Some prayed to gods long forgotten, others wrote final letters, knowing they'd never be sent. Engineers patched the ship with desperation, sealing holes with whatever scraps they could find. The Invictus wasn't a warship anymore. It was a scarred beast staggering into its final hunt. In the mess hall, Ramirez gathered soldiers, his voice hard. This is it. Earth is the line. If we fall, humanity falls. We've all lost something to the Coalition, families, homes, futures. Now we get to decide how we'll be remembered. The soldiers nodded grimly. They knew what was coming. None of them expected to live through it, but they would fight anyway. Earth. The purge came like a storm. The skies Above the planet glowed as alien. Warships descended, their weapons spitting fire. Cities erupted in chaos, skyscrapers crumbled under bombardment, streets filled with terrified crowds as fire rained from above, governments broadcast frantic pleas for calm, but the people knew the truth. The coalition had come to finish them. In New London, sirens wailed as families crowded into underground shelters. In Mumbai, resistance fighters manned ancient anti-aircraft guns, firing wildly at the sky. In New York, soldiers lined barricades, their rifles trembling, their hands as alien dropships descended, but amid the terror, defiance burned. Civilians hurled stones at alien patrols. Old men carried rifles older than themselves. Children whispered of the Invictus, the shadow ship that had struck fear into the galaxy. They prayed it would come. The Invictus dropped out of hyperspace 18 hours later. Kane stood on the bridge as the stars reformed. Earth looming ahead, a blue and green jewel scarred by fire. His chest tightened at the sight of his home. Battered but still alive, but between the Invictus and Earth lay a nightmare. The coalition fleet, hundreds of ships, encircled the planet, their weapons raining fire on the surface. Massive dreadnoughts bristled with cannons. Carriers unleashed endless waves of fighters, and smaller escorts swarmed. Like wolves, Alvarez's face went pale. "Commander, there's no way through." Kane's voice was still. "There's always a way through." The bridge was silent. Every officer knew what he meant. This wasn't a battle they could win. This was suicide. But it was suicide with purpose. Kane turned to his crew. "We've come too far to stop now." Every man and woman on the ship knew what this war meant. Earth is burning. Billions are screaming for help, and we are all they have. He pointed to the planet beyond the swarm of alien ships. "We are the shield. We are the sword. We are the reminder that humanity will never kneel again. Today we fight for the memory of our species. If we die, we die making them fear our name for 1,000 years." The crew straightened. Fear didn't vanish, but it hardened into something sharper: resolve. "Helm," Kane ordered. "Set a course straight through their fleet." The Invictus surged forward. The alien armada shifted immediately, their sensors screaming, their formations twisting to block the human warship. Fighters swarmed ahead like a black tide. "Brace for impact," Alvarez shouted. The first wave struck. Fighters streaked toward the Invictus, unleashing missiles and plasma. The warship's point defense turrets lit up, shredding dozens in sprays of fire, but hundreds more poured in. Explosions rippled across the shields, shaking the ship. "Shields at 60%, Ramirez shouted. "Keep firing." Kane roared. Rail guns thundered. Missile strands blazed. Alien fighters exploded by the dozens, their wreckage scattering through space, but more replaced them, endless, overwhelming. Then the larger ships opened fire. Beams of plasma and particle energy lanced out, slamming into the Invictus. The ship buckled under the assault, her shields flickering, consoles sparked. Crew screamed as systems failed. "Shields at 20%, Alvarez shouted. "Hull breaches on decks 5, 7, and 15. Kane gritted his teeth. "Redirect power from non-essential systems. Keep us moving." The Invictus plowed through the storm, her weapons tearing open enemy cruisers, her spinal cannon firing a blinding lance of energy that split a dreadnought. But the ship was bleeding. Hull Plates ripped away, fires raged, crew died, still she pushed on Earth. The sky lit up as the Invictus broke through the first line of the fleet. Civilians watching from bunkers and streets gasped as the shadow of the warship appeared, a wounded beast, defying the gods themselves. "It's them," someone whispered. Invictus they came, the cry spread across burning cities and ruined battlefields. Humanity lifted its head. Hope, fragile and desperate, flickered back to life. On the bridge, Alvarez's hands flew across his console. "We can't take much more of this. Commander, engines at critical, weapons overheating." Kane's eyes locked on the planet. They were close, too close to stop. "Open a channel," he ordered. The comm officer hesitated. "To who, sir?" "To everyone." The view screen flickered, broadcasting Kane's face across every human colony, every bunker, every battlefield on Earth. "This is Commander Kane of the Invictus," he said, his voice raw but unshaken. "We've come to stand with you. We may not survive this day, but we will fight, and we will show the galaxy that humanity will never be broken." He leaned closer, his eyes burning. "Rise. Fight. Don't wait for salvation. Be your own salvation. Let them know Earth is not theirs to burn." The feed cut. For a moment there was silence, then Earth erupted. Civilians took up arms, soldiers rallied. Resistance groups struck back with renewed fury across the planet. Humans fought not to win, but to defy, to show the galaxy that even on the brink of extinction, humanity would bite back. But the battle in space grew worse. The Invictus was surrounded now, caught in a crossfire of alien ships. Beams tore through her hull, explosions rocked her decks, bulkheads groaned, fires spread unchecked. "Commander," Ramirez shouted, "we can't hold, the ship's coming apart." Kane's jaw clenched. He looked around at his crew, bloodied, exhausted, but still fighting. They deserved more than a meaningless death, but Earth needed more than survival. It needed a symbol. "Bring us into the heart of their fleet," Kane ordered. Alvarez spun toward him, shock on his face. "Sir, that's suicide." "Do it," Kane roared. The Invictus turned, engines flaring one last time. She drove straight into the thickest part of the alien formation. Cannons blazing, missiles detonating, rail guns thundering. Enemy ships exploded in chains, their wreckage colliding with their allies. The fleet scrambled, chaos spreading through their ranks. The Invictus was tearing herself apart, but she was dragging the enemy down with her. On Earth, civilians looked to the sky. They saw the warship burning, bleeding, but unbroken. They saw the Coalition's mighty fleet falter before her, and they cheered, even through tears, even through fear. Invictus had become more than a ship. She was humanity's last stand, humanity's roar into the void, and Kane, standing at her heart, knew this was what he had been born for. But as the battle raged, a warning flashed across the tactical displays. "Commander," Alvarez shouted, "the enemy flagship. Its core is charging something. Energy output is off the charts." Kane's eyes locked on the massive alien vessel at the center of the fleet. Its weapons glowed brighter than a star. Energy building for a single devastating strike. He knew instantly what it was. The Purge. The same weapon that had erased colonies now aimed directly at Earth. If it fired, the planet would be ash. Kane's voice was calm, steady. "Target the flagship. Everything we have left." The crew obeyed. The Invictus turned, her remaining weapons locking Onto the glowing ship, rail guns fired. Missiles streaked, cannons roared. The spinal cannon began to charge, the last spark of her dying core pouring everything into one final shot. The alien flagship's glow intensified, its weapon seconds from firing. On the bridge, silence reigned. Every officer knew what this meant. There would be no retreat, no survival, only this last strike. Kane's eyes never left the target. His voice was steady, unshakable. For Earth, the spinal cannon fired. The bridge of the Invictus was silent, except for the deep rising hum of the spinal cannon. The ship's lights dimmed, power rerouted from every non-essential system into the weapon. Engines flickered, shields collapsed. Gravity stabilizers failed, but none of it mattered. All that mattered was the shot. Kane gripped the command chair, eyes locked on the glowing alien flagship. Its weapon pulsed with sickly green light, building toward the purge blast that would erase Earth in seconds. Fate of billions rested on one exchange. Cannon at 90%, Alvarez shouted, sweat streaming down his temple. Keep it steady, Kane said, his voice like iron. The alien flagship blazed brighter, its weapon primed, the screen filled with its glow until it drowned the stars. Then both ships fired. The Invictus unleashed a beam of pure white fury, lance of energy compressed into a single impossible shot. At the same moment, the alien weapon roared, vomiting a torrent of green annihilation toward Earth. The two beams collided in the void. The universe went white. The shockwave tore through space, shredding fighters, ripping smaller ships apart, hurling wreckage like meteors. The Invictus bucked violently, her hull screaming, alarms wailing. Crew members were thrown from their stations, sparks and fire cascading across the bridge. Power overload, Ramirez shouted. We're losing containment. Hold her steady, Kane roared, gripping the chair so hard his knuckles split. The two beams pressed against each other, locked in a battle of energy and will. For a moment it seemed the purge was winning, the green torrent pushing closer to Earth. Then the Invictus shot flared, fueled by the last reserves of her dying core, and surged forward. Beams detonated. The explosion blinded every sensor, every eye, flooding the void with white fire. The alien flagship vanished in the blast, torn apart piece by piece until nothing remained but burning fragments. The shockwave hammered the Invictus, ripping armor from her hull, shattering decks, throwing crew to the floor. Then silence. The void cleared. Earth still turned below, scarred, burning, but alive. The purge had been stopped. Bridge was filled with smoke and groans. Alvarez coughed, blood on his lips, but his eyes were wide with awe. We did it, Commander, we did it. A weak cheer rose from the crew, ragged and broken, but filled with desperate relief. For the first time they believed Earth might survive. Kane didn't cheer. He sat in the command chair, his body trembling, his heart pounding. He had stared into the abyss, and for now humanity had clawed its way back. But the cost, the Invictus was a corpse drifting in orbit. Her hull was cracked, engines dead, shields gone. Fires raged through the lower decks. Life support was failing on several sections. Nearly a third of the crew was dead, their bodies still trapped in sealed compartments. Another third lay wounded, scattered across makeshift infirmaries that overflowed with blood and cries. Kane walked the ruined corridors, the weight of every step heavier than the last. Soldiers saluted Him with bandaged arms, engineers nodded. With hollow eyes, hands blackened from burns, medics looked up from stretchers, silently pleading for miracles. Kane couldn't give. He stopped by the infirmary where Ramirez sat on a cot, his leg wrapped in bloody bandages. The security chief tried to stand, grimacing, but Kane raised a hand. "Stay down," Kane said. Ramirez forced a weak grin. "You kept Earth alive, that's worth a leg." Kane tried to smile, but it never reached his eyes. On Earth, celebrations erupted. Civilians poured from bunkers, shouting, crying, clinging to one another. They had seen the purge weapon flare in the sky, then vanish in the blinding explosion. They had seen the alien fleet falter, their formations collapse in confusion. And above it all, they had seen the Invictus, broken, burning but unbowed. The warship became a legend that very moment. Songs were written, stories told, banners raised. Humanity had not been erased. Humanity had roared back, but Kane knew better. Legends didn't repair hulls. Legends didn't refill ammunition. Legends didn't bring back the dead. And the war wasn't over. The Coalition Council burned with fury. The High Arbiter slammed his clawed hand against the great table, mandibles snapping in rage. A single ship has undone centuries of order. Species of primitives has made us bleed. The chamber echoed with angry voices, delegates shouting for vengeance, for extermination, for blood, but beneath their rage was fear. The Invictus had done the impossible, and that meant humanity was no longer beneath them. "Deploy more fleets," one delegate hissed. "Burn Earth to cinders." "No," the Arbiter said sharply, silencing the chamber. His black eyes glowed with cold fury. "Direct confrontation has failed. Humanity thrives in desperation. Very well, we will change tactics." A new plan began to form, one that didn't involve fleets or weapons, one that struck deeper. "Find their divisions," the Arbiter whispered. "Exploit their weakness. Humanity has always been its own worst enemy." The Council murmured in agreement. The war would continue, not with brute force, but with subversion. On the Invictus, Kane gathered his senior officers in the battered war room. The holographic star map flickered, half its projectors dead. "We stop the purge," Kane said. "But the Coalition won't stop. They'll regroup. And they'll come harder than ever. Earth can't survive another assault like that." Alvarez leaned against the table, his uniform scorched, his face pale. "Then what do we do, Commander? The Invictus can barely hold together. We've lost too many, and we don't have the resources to rebuild." Kane stared at the map, his reflection fractured in the shattered hollow light. "We need allies." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. "Allies?" Gordon asked. "Who?" "No one dares stand against the Coalition. That's why they've ruled for centuries." "Not openly," Kane said, "but there are others like us, species enslaved, species broken. They've been waiting for someone to draw blood first. We've done that. Now we show them it's possible." Alvarez frowned. "And if they won't join us?" Kane's jaw hardened. "Then we fight alone. But if they will, then maybe this war won't end with Earth's ashes." Room was silent. They all knew it was a desperate gamble, but desperate gambles were all Kane had left. That night Kane returned to his quarters. He sat heavily at his desk, staring at the photo of his brother for the first time in years. His hands trembled. He had saved Earth For now, but the cost haunted him. Faces of dead crew, the screams of burning colonies, the traitors still rotting in the brig, his words echoing. In Kane's mind, you'll get us all killed. Was he right? Kane clenched his fists. No, he couldn't allow himself to believe that. If he faltered, if he gave in, humanity was finished. He whispered to the foe, I'll find a way, brother, even if it kills me. But Kane didn't know that within his ship, the seeds of betrayal were already sprouting again. The traitor Enon had not been the only one. Fear made men weak, and weakness bred treachery. In the shadows of the wounded Invictus, whispers spread. Some crew began to question Kane's judgment. Some began to wonder if survival lay not in fighting but in bargaining, and some had already made contact with the enemy. Far across the galaxy, the Arbiter listened to the intercepted transmissions with satisfaction. Yes, he hissed, let them tear themselves apart. We will not need to destroy humanity. Humanity will destroy itself. He turned to his council. Prepare the next phase, spread division. Sow doubt. Let them believe their commander leads them to ruin, and when they are weakest, we strike again. The council bowed in agreement. The war had shifted, no longer a battle of fleets but a battle of loyalty, of unity, of trust, and the Invictus, once humanity's greatest weapon, might yet become the blade that cut its own throat. On the bridge, Kane stared at Earth through the viewport. Smoke still rose from cities, but light still shone. Life endured, humanity endured for now, but he felt it like a storm on the horizon. The next battle would not be fought with guns alone. It would be fought in the hearts of his crew, and Kane knew with a hollow ache in his chest that he might already be losing. The Invictus drifted like a wounded predator through the void. Her scars ran deep. Burnt armor plates shattered decks, a gutted engine core barely keeping her alive. From a distance she looked like a ghost, a ruin left adrift after a forgotten battle, but inside her heart still beat, her crew still clung to life, and her commander still plotted the war to come. Kane stood in the war room, the fractured holographic map flickering before him. Earth glowed faintly at the center, ringed by hostile markers that stretched across the stars. No matter how he traced it, no path led to survival. Humanity could not face the coalition alone. Alvarez leaned against the table, his face haggard, his eyes bloodshot. Commander, with respect, even if we limp Earth through another assault, we can't win this war. We'll bleed out before the year is done. Kane nodded slowly. He'd thought the same thing 1,000 times in the sleepless nights since the purge. Coalition's fleets were endless. The Invictus was dying. Earth's people were starving and scared. We need allies, Kane said at last. The room fell silent. Ramirez frowned. Allies from where? Every major species is under the coalition's boot. If they haven't risen up in centuries, why would they now? Because we showed them it's possible, Kane said, his voice sharp. We killed their flagship. We broke their armada. We stopped the purge. We've bled the monsters they fear. That matters. Roden shifted uneasily. Or it scares them even more. They might see us as dangerous as the coalition. Why would they risk themselves for us? Kane leaned forward, his shadow stretching across the map. Because they already know what life under the coalition is. Chains, starvation, humiliation. We offer them something that Coalition never will. Vengeance. Freedom. A chance to bite back. The officers exchanged glances. It wasn't certainty, but it was hope, and right now hope was the rarest resource of all. Their first stop was Koreth, a mining world buried in dust and smoke, its skies filled with the glow of endless furnaces. For centuries the Karathi had been forced to mine ore for the coalition, their bodies broken by labor, their leaders executed for rebellion. They had once been warriors fierce and proud. Now they were little more than slaves. The Invictus arrived in orbit, its shadow falling over the planet. Cain stood on the bridge, staring at the gray surface below. Open a channel, he ordered. Moments later, the view screen flickered to reveal the Karathi governor, a scarred, hulking figure with skin like stone. His eyes narrowed at Cain. Human, the governor rumbled. You bring trouble with you. The coalition watches this world closely. If they see you here, they'll burn us to ash. They'll burn you anyway. Cain said coldly, that's what they do. They starve you, break you, kill you. I've seen it on Earth, you've seen it here. You think obedience will save you. It won't. The governor's jaw tightened. And you think defiance will. Cain leaned closer. Defiance already has. We destroyed their flagship. We stopped their purge. We showed the galaxy that the coalition can bleed. Join us and you won't be fighting alone anymore. Stay quiet and you'll die on your knees. The governor studied him for a long, heavy moment. Then he leaned back. Your ship is burning. Your people are dying. You look like a man dragging his species to its grave. Why should we tie ourselves to your corpse? The words stung. Cain's crew shifted uneasily, waiting for his answer. Cain's voice was low but steady. Because corpses don't kill flagships. The governor and LT Unc and GT's eyes flickered. For the first time, doubt cracked his mask. This isn't just about survival, Cain pressed. It's about revenge. Don't you want to see the Arbiter choke on the blood of his own empire? Don't you want your children to grow without chains? The governor said nothing for a long while. Then he cut the channel. Silence filled the bridge. Alvarez exhaled slowly. That went well, but an hour later, transmission came through, not from the governor but from the mines themselves. A group of Karathi rebels, armed and desperate, had seen Cain's broadcast. They begged for weapons, for leadership, for war. Cain allowed himself the smallest of smiles. The governor might hesitate, but the people had chosen. The first spark of alliance had been lit, but even as Cain reached outward, cracks spread. Within, whispers ran through the crew decks of the Invictus. Cain was reckless. Cain was dragging them to their deaths. Cain was obsessed with vengeance, blinded to reality. Some believed the coalition's propaganda that Earth had provoked everything, that Cain was dooming humanity by refusing to surrender. Sabotage followed. Whispers, power conduits rerouted without authorization, ammunition stockpiles tampered with. One shuttle vanished from the hangar, stolen in the night. Ramirez confronted Cain in the war room. His face was dark, his voice grim. We've got a problem, Commander. More than one. I've caught at least 3 crew members sending encrypted messages. Coalition frequencies. We've got traitors on board. Cain's blood turned to fire. Names. 2 of them are in the BR rig already. The third, Ramirez hesitated. He's still out there hiding. We don't know who. Cain's fists clenched. He thought of the first traitor, the boy who had begged For Mercy, who had claimed Cain was leading them all to ruin, he had dismissed it as cowardice. Now he wasn't so sure. Find him, Cain said, his voice like stone. And when you do make an example of him, Ramirez hesitated. Last time you said we wouldn't become the coalition. Not yet. Cain's eyes burned. Not yet ended when Earth almost burned. Ramirez nodded silently. The coalition fanned the flames across the stars. Their propaganda spread. Hollow broadcasts showed Earth burning, twisted to make Cain the villain. The human commander sacrifices billions for his pride. The Invictus slaughters innocents in the name of vengeance, surrender, and humanity will be spared further suffering. Some humans listened, some believed. Cain intercepted transmissions from Earth itself, civilians demanding his surrender, leaders calling him a terrorist, even whispers that factions of Earth's own governments were reaching out to the coalition behind his back. It cut deeper than any blade. On the bridge, Alvarez confronted him. Quietly, they're turning your own people against you. You're winning battles in space, Commander, but you're losing the war on the ground. Cain's face was hard. Then we'll remind them why they need us, or drive them further away, Alvarez warned. Cain didn't answer. Their second mission was worse. They traveled to Vera, a world of avian species known for their brilliant technology, stripped bare by the coalition and forced into servitude. Cain offered them the same promise he had given the Korathi: vengeance, freedom, war, but the Varons refused. You are reckless, their leader said, his feathers trembling. You bring only death. If we ally with you, we will share your fate. The coalition cannot be beaten. You are a candle burning, bright but brief, and when you are gone, the darkness will return. The channel cut. Cain stared at the blank screen, fury boiling in his veins. Cowards, all of them. He slammed his fist on the console, the impact echoing through the bridge. If they won't stand with us, they'll fall with the coalition. His crew shifted uneasily. Alvarez met his gaze, worry flickering in his eyes. That night, Cain wandered the empty corridors of the Invictus. His reflection followed him in broken steel panels. His shadow stretched by flickering lights. He felt the weight pressing harder than ever. Allies slipping through his fingers. Betrayal festering within his ship. Earth divided, humanity doubting him. For the first time, he wondered if the traitors were right. Maybe he was leading them all to ruin. He stopped outside the BR rig. The traitor Enon still sat inside, pale and thin eyes hollow. He looked up as Cain entered. You see it now, don't you? The boy whispered. They'll never follow you, not your crew, not Earth, not the other worlds. You'll fight until you're alone, and then you'll die, and humanity will die with you. Cain stared at him, his jaw trembling, rage and doubt wearing inside. Then he turned and walked away without a word. The next morning, the sabotage escalated. An explosion rocked the engine deck, killing 12 and crippling the already damaged core. Repairs would take weeks. The Invictus was stranded in dead space. Ramirez arrived on the bridge, his face grim. It was no accident. This was deliberate. Cain's chest burned. The traitor was still free, and now the ship was more vulnerable than ever. Outside, the stars were silent, but Cain felt the noose tightening. The coalition didn't need to destroy him with fleets. They just had to wait. and within his own ship the cracks were widening fast. In the council chamber of the coalition, the arbiter watched the reports with cold satisfaction. "Let him bleed," the arbiter hissed. "Let him drown in his own paranoia. Humanity will tear itself apart, and when it does, the Invictus will be ours." The council bowed in agreement. Kane stood on the bridge, staring into the void. His reflection looked back at him. In the glass, a scarred, exhausted man, carrying the weight of an entire species. He whispered to himself, unheard by his crew, "I won't let you win, I won't." But deep inside, a question noted at him: could he save humanity from the coalition, or was the real enemy already inside his ship? The Invictus was a coffin drifting through the stars, her engines crippled, her deck scarred, her crew worn to shadows of themselves, and yet she still breathed, still fought, still carried the weight of humanity on her broken spine. But Kane felt it, an end approaching. The coalition wasn't finished. They had failed to burn Earth. They had failed to kill the warship. Now they would tighten the noose with one last strike. In the war room, Kane stared at the fractured holographic map. Enemy signals pulsed across the galaxy, converging like vultures on Earth. "This is it," Alvarez said quietly, his voice raw. "They're gathering for a final push. Not another fleet, all their fleets. They mean to erase us." Ramirez's voice was grim. "And we're dead. In the water, engines half functional, ammunition near empty. Even if we fix her, we can't take on that many ships." Kane's eyes never left the map. "We don't need to win. We just need to make them bleed enough that someone else rises when we fall." Roden shifted uneasily. "You mean die as martyrs?" Kane looked at him, and in his eyes burned the fire of a man who had already chosen death long ago. "No, die as a warning." The sabotage grew worse in the days that followed. Food supplies vanished from storage, weapon systems failed without cause. A fire broke out in the medical bay, killing 6 wounded crew. Every attempt at repair was sabotaged before it could stabilize. The traitor was still free, and now the crew began to whisper louder, eyes flicking toward Kane when they thought he didn't see. Was their commander saving them or destroying them? One night, Ramirez stormed into Kane's quarters, slamming a data pad on his desk. "We found him," Ramirez said, his voice sharp. The data pad flickered with surveillance images, a figure moving through the shadows of the engine decks, rerouting systems planting charges. The image sharpened. Kane froze. It was Riordan, the youngest of his officers, the one who had always questioned, always hesitated, the one Kane had ignored, too focused on the war ahead to see the knife at his back. Kane's chest burned. "Bring him to me." They dragged Riordan into the brig, shackled and bloodied. He glared at Kane with a defiance that cut deeper than betrayal. "You think you're saving humanity?" Riordan spat. "You're not. You're killing us. You're dragging us into a war we can't win." The coalition offered us peace, survival. All you had to do was surrender. Peace, Kane's voice was ice. "Is that what you call chains? Executions, purges?" "It's better than extinction," Riordan snapped. "You've doomed Earth. Every man, woman, and child will burn because you couldn't put your pride aside." Kane slammed his fist into the wall, the sound echoing like a gunshot. "It's not pride, it's defiance. It's the one thing they can't take from us," Roan sneered. And when earth is ash, what good will your defiance be? The words cut deep. Cain leaned closer, his voice alone, trembling with rage. If earth burns, the galaxy will remember that it burned. Fighting that humanity refused to kneel, that matters. Rodin's eyes flickered for a moment. Cain thought he saw doubt, then Rodin laughed bitterly. You sound just like them, the arbiter, willing to sacrifice billions for your cause. Cain froze, the words sank deep, twisting in his chest. Was he different? Or was he just another tyrant forcing his people to bleed for an ideal? He turned to Ramirez. His voice was hoarse. Lock him down. No food, no water. He chose his side. Rodin shouted after him as he walked away. You'll kill us all, Cain, you'll kill us all. The final coalition fleet came 1 week later. The sky above Earth darkened as thousands of ships descended. Dreadnoughts bristled with cannons. Carriers unleashed endless waves of fighters. Cruisers formed walls of steel and fire. The arbiter himself commanded from the flagship, a vessel larger than any Earth city, its core pulsing with a weapon greater than the purge. On Earth panic spread, sirens wailed. Civilians crowded into bunkers, soldiers dug trenches and set up barricades, their weapons shaking in their hands. They all looked to the sky, they all looked for the Invictus. The warship emerged from the void, broken shadow of her former self. Hull plates missing, engines scarred, weapons scarcer. But she came. The bridge was silent as the alien fleet filled the screen. Cain stood at the center, shoulders squared, eyes burning. This is the end, Alvarez said softly. No, Cain said. This is the beginning. The crew straightened. They were exhausted, terrified, half-broken, but they followed him always. Helm, Cain ordered, set a course straight into the heart of their fleet. The Invictus roared forward, cannons blazing. She tore into the first line of alien cruisers, rail guns punching holes, missiles igniting fuel lines. Fighters swarmed, but her turrets spat fire, shredding them by the dozens. The coalition fired back, beams lanced through the void, slamming into the warship. Hull plates ripped away, decks collapsed, crew screamed as fire spread through the corridors, shields gone. Alvarez shouted, hull integrity failing. Keep firing, Cain roared. The spinal cannon lit up, blasting through a dreadnought. The explosion rocked the battlefield, scattering enemy formations, but more closed in, always more. The Invictus was bleeding out, but she refused to stop. On Earth, people watched in awe as the warship blazed across the sky. Children pointed, soldiers cheered, civilians wept. The Invictus wasn't just a ship anymore. She was defiance made steel. On the coalition flagship, the Arbiter watched with cold fury. Enough, he hissed. End this. The flagship's core pulsed, building to a monstrous glow, the weapon within an evolution of the purge, prepared to fire, not at Earth, this time at the Invictus. On the bridge, alarms screamed. Commander, Alvarez shouted, the flagship is charging something, power readings off the scale. Cain's eyes locked on the glowing vessel. I knew he had seconds to decide. The Invictus couldn't withstand that shot. Nothing could. Unless... Ramirez, Cain said, his voice steady. Prepare the core for overload. The crew froze. Commander Alvarez's voice cracked. Cain's eyes burned. We can't kill them ship by ship, but we can kill their heart. We drive the Invictus into the flagship, detonate the core. and take the Arbiter with us. The silence was suffocating. Every officer stared at him, horror and awe wearing on their faces. "It'll kill us all," Alvarez whispered. "Yes," Kane said, "but it'll save Earth." The crew hesitated, then one by one they nodded. No hesitation, no fear. They had followed him this far. They would follow him to the end. The Invictus turned, engines screaming, her broken hull blazing as she charged toward the flagship. Enemy ships swarmed to block her, but she tore through them. Cannons blazing, missiles detonating, ramming through anything in her path. The Arbiter's eyes widened. No, no. But it was too late. The Invictus slammed into the flagship's hull, embedding herself deep within. Sparks and fire rained across the bridge. Kane stood tall, his crew at their stations. Unflinching, he opened a channel, broadcasting to every human, every alien, every corner of the galaxy. "This is Commander Kane of the Invictus," he said, his voice steady. "You thought humanity was broken. You thought we would kneel. Remember this. Instead, we would rather burn than bow." He looked at Alvarez, at Ramirez, at his crew, his family. They nodded. Kane's voice dropped to a whisper. "For Earth." Ramirez pressed the detonator. The core overloaded. Invictus exploded. The blast tore through the flagship, ripping it apart in a firestorm that consumed everything around it. The Arbiter's ship disintegrated, its weapon silenced forever. The shock wave rippled through the fleet, scattering ships, igniting fuel, breaking formations. When the fire cleared, the Coalition Armada was in chaos, leaderless, broken, and Earth still turned below, scarred but alive. In the years that followed, the story of the Invictus spread across the galaxy. Humanity's last warship. The ship that stood against an empire. The ship that burned to save its people, oppressed species rose in rebellion. Inspired by the legend, the Coalition fractured, its grip shattered. And Kane, his name became a curse among the aliens, a prayer among the humans, and a symbol across the stars. They expected a shuttle. They met Earth's most powerful warship, and humanity was never the same.